Welcome to the Friday show presented by Woodbine. This weekend at Woodbine, Saturday is the Toronto Cup for 3-year-old colts on the E.P. Taylor turf. And on Sunday, the feature race is the Wonder Stakes for 3-year-old fillies on the turf. We're a week away from Super Saturday. That's 4 graded stakes, 3 grade 1, including the Rico Woodbine Mile. A huge day next Saturday at Woodbine. I am pleased to be joined. I'm Ray Paulick, pleased to be joined by 2 award-winning turf riders, Tim Wilkin from upstate New York and Jay Hovdey from Southern California. We're here to talk a little bit about Flightline, and most of us, I think all of us, probably saw what he did last weekend in the Pacific Classic. Personally, to me, I put him in the pantheon of the best horses, among the best horses, the best horse that I've seen in racing, and that I've seen personally. That goes back to 1979. Judging horses is subjective, and let me just start with just a little bit of background. Jay, when did you first start seriously attending the races?
Oh, goodness. Well, that would have to take me back to my days that I'd go to Caliente with my grandparents. And that was so long ago that Caliente doesn't exist. I know my grandparents, for that matter. But to call me a lifelong, long-time racing fan is pretty much just scratching the surface. My grandfather was a great sports fan, and horse racing was just one of the many things that he introduced me to.
And you've been covering the sports. We worked together at the Racing Forum in the early 1980s, and you were already there when I arrived, so you've been covering the sport for over 40 years.
That's correct. Yep, and enjoyed every minute.
And Tim, that's about the same number of years. Jay's been based in Southern California, but he's traveled the world to cover racing. You've been based in upstate New York. How many Saratoga meetings have you gone to?
Do I really want to admit all this? I think my first one was 1980. I was working at the Saratogian newspaper. My first year was 1979, but the sports editor didn't allow me to go to the track at all because I had to sit in the office and put together their pink sheet, the betting guide that they have. So I missed General Assembly. So 1980 was the first one I've been at, and I've been to every Saratoga meet since. I've only missed one Travers, and that was when Will's Way won for Jimmy Bond. Because my dumb person that I am, I said to some guy, he was getting married, I said, if you invite me to your wedding, I'll get you a glass duck. And he says, okay, I'm going to invite you to the wedding. So I had to buy the guy a glass duck, and he was getting married on Travers Day in 1996. So I missed that, but this guy still has his glass duck. And if I had to do it over again, I would have gone to the Travers. But yeah, I've been to, and I've been to Triple Crown. I've been to Breeders' Cup. I've been to Belmont Park many, 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 many times for big races down there. So yeah, I've been all over. And it's
so suffice to say, all three of us, because I started around 79 as well, have seen a lot of good performances over the years.
No, this definitely qualifies as 3 old farts sitting around the campfire. I mean, Ray's challenge to us, Tim, is of course to come up with some of those outsized performances that we've seen in person. At least that's the way he described it to me. And I was inspired to put together a pretty significant list that's going to turn into a column this weekend for Blood Horse Daily. So this is, I think Flightline's performance is tripping those switches in a lot of people.
I agree 100%. I mean, anybody that watched that race whose jaw didn't drop to the floor was watching the wrong race, because that was just a phenomenal thing. I mean, I expected him to win. I didn't expect he was going to win like that. I mean, and he probably could have won by 30 lengths. I mean, it was just that great a performance. And, and then how the debate starts. Where is this horse in the all-time list? Which is, I guess, something we're going to try to dissect here today.
So what are the, I talked about baseball greats. Willie Mays was a guy who could hit with power, run, throw, play the field. How do you judge horses from era to era? What are the what are the factors or what are the guides that you kind of use? Jay, you go first with that.
Well, there's the traditional ones, frequency of competition, carrying weight, speed, class, the kind of races that they run in and win. One by one, those standards have fallen by the wayside over the last, let's say, 25, 30 years. And right now, we're kind of pretty much down to a few good races is enough to really elevate a horse's reputation in the minds of fans and to a certain extent breeders, if it's the entire colt. I think the last real fulsome campaign we saw for any horse at the level we're talking about with Flightline would have to be Rachel Alexandra. And what she accomplished in that one season, breaking down the barriers of gender, distance, and even age. So if we see that again, it'll be great. If we see that with Flightline, it'll be unusual. But I think that's pretty much what we're down to. That handful of really great performances. They've got to be fast. They're not going to carry weight anymore, and as frequent as possible. But that's getting to be, count them on one hand.
Yeah, the day after Flightline's win, I was out backstretch at Saratoga, and I spent some time with Billy Mott. I was asking him what he thought of Flightline. And yeah, he said it was like and the quote he said was like, it was Secretariat-ish, that kind of performance. But he had the caveat that said, in order for them to really go down as being a great, they got to run. I mean, and he mentioned Cigar. He goes, I'm paraphrasing what he said, but he kind of said that, come back and talk to me in 16 races, which was the magic number for Cigar. Because, I don't by any means think the Flightline's a flash in the pan, but, he's got to do it more than 5 races. I mean, it's god darn impressive that he's been then. He's got to keep doing it if he's going to go down into the record books and write his own history chapter. If you ask me, got to do it more.
Well, I know we would all like to see that. Whether or not that's going to happen, I don't know. He's got 1 race left this year. They haven't closed the door on running him as a 5-year-old next year. But when you're worth $50 million in the Stallion Barn, it's kind of hard to, it comes down to managing an asset if you're looking at it as an investment. Hronis Racing loves to race, but the partners that the Hronis's have are mostly in the breeding industry.
The other thing is from my standpoint, and I inhaled the whole experience last Saturday pretty deeply. I was back at the barn afterwards, and I'm thinking to myself, how much better can he run? The answer is none better. How many more times do we need to see that to know that he can do that? I mean, we're already seeing him do it at 7/8 a mile and a mile and a quarter. So we might be looking at that very special creature that he has. Each time he runs, he shows you how good a thoroughbred can perform under a given modern circumstance. And I mean, it becomes almost indulgent to want too much more. We're selfish, we do, but I never see him run again. I saw him run last Saturday.
And the thing too is, do you expect him to go into the Breeders' Cup Classic and win by 20 lengths? Is that the standard he's setting for himself?
Depends on who he's running against, yeah. I mean, he very well could.
He very well could. I mean, yes, he could. But is it fair to him to think that he's going to do that time and time again? I think what his the smallest margin of victory he had was the Met Mile. It was 6 lengths, and then he stumbled out of the gate. I mean, it was. You think that anyone that's going to beat him has to sprout the proverbial Pegasus wings to do it. It's a marvelous story for horse racing, which needs a story like this. He's becoming, and I hope he becomes more of a national story, because the sport needs a star like this, and and he's right there on the silver platter. And can he deliver again in November at Keeneland? Gosh, I sure hope so, because I think it would be great for racing. But then what happens after that? I mean, what is left for him to do if he does what a lot of people expect him to do? What's left for him to do next year? Does he go to Pegasus in Florida? Does he go to Dubai? What does he do? That's would be my question. I guess I'm putting the apple before the horse here, but those are the questions. Everyone's always talking about what's next in this game. It's not like what he did yesterday. As soon as he crosses the finish line, what's next? Yeah, the Breeders' Cup is next. What's next after that? So, to me, I hope like heck that he still runs next year and he continues to do such marvelous things. And he'll go down into the books as one of the all-time greats.
Yeah, the narrative in racing has kind of been that you have to win the Derby or run in the Triple Crown to be a superstar. Cigar proved that wrong. Zenyatta proved that wrong. But it seems increasingly, if it doesn't happen in the Triple Crown, it doesn't break out of the inner circle of racing and get into the mainstream. I wish that weren't the case.
Going through my pantheon, as it were, of the great performances that I'd seen in person, and I think I share this with Ray, the pinnacle has always been Spectacular Bid's Santa Anita Handicap of 1980. Driving rainstorm, 130 pounds, proven competition, real good competition. He made 3 individual moves that day and just pissed in. And that was coming off a track record for 1.25 miles on a perfect track. So there was a situation of a horse who was already a champion twice, who is elevating his game even a little bit more. You know, we're seeing that a little bit with Flightline, although we're not seeing it as often. But Spectacular Bid never ran a better race than he did in the Santa Anita Handicap that day, and he never ran a better race than that before that. But they were all good. So, you know, when we were blessed with seeing a horse like that who brought us in the room at a very high level, and then one day just blew the roof off. And, you know, that's where I started with my in-person experiences. It was cold, it was wet, it was nasty, and he just didn't care. There was a horse with no personality at all. He was made out of just remnants of an old steel yard or something. I mean, and he just went out and he just dismantled a very good field in very hard conditions.
And that was a few races after he went 7 furlongs in, I don't know if it was a track record, but it was very close to it. So 7 furlongs to Mountain Court. I guess that kind of gets into the question I had in comparing to baseball. You know, what are the factors? Do you have to be able to go short, long? You know, what are the different factors? It's hard to compare a horse that's raced 5 times against one like Spectacular Bid who raced 30 times. It really is.
I agree.
I'm not sure it's that hard if you isolate his. I mean, you've got the durability and the frequency, but if you remove that, Spectacular Bid's best races at 6, 7, a mile. I'm not sure he ran them. He might have run a mile and 1.25 miles. You know, Flightline is in the game with him. He's in the conversation. So, you know, we have to account for eras, and then we can still do some comparison for fun.
Yeah, it's in my thing too. I'll go back to it. It's, you know, 5 races does not put him in the books to me. 5. I mean, as god darn great as he is, as he's shown, I still think he has to do it more often than 5 times, and that's the decision that the Hronesses are going to have to come up with. Are we going to run him next year? I have my doubts. They say they want to, but I think it would be just a crying shame if he doesn't run next year. I mean, I think
your opinion would be different if you had been here, Tim, which is where I took my list, that the experience of seeing it, of being there in 3 dimensions with a crowd of, it was pretty weak the other day at Del Mar, but it was still very appreciative, and the noise was there. There's something about seeing these performances in person that allows you to not be that sort of stand back, medium cool. I saw it on TV. It was impressive. So was Frosted in the Met Mile kind of thing. There's something so real and visceral about just being there, and people don't prize that anymore. You're there at a great meet where people are having a great time, I'm sure.
Yeah,
and they get to see things up close and personal. We need to celebrate that, and that's why Flightline's race in person was so significant.
I get what you're saying about that, Jay, because I remember when Rachel ran. I was there to watch her in the Preakness. I was there to watch her in the Haskell. I was there when she won the Woodward at Saratoga, and those were, just to be there, you feel the greatness because you're there, and you do get. Selfishly, I want to see Flightline in person. I haven't seen her in person yet. I'll see him at Keeneland at the Breeders' Cup, but I have yet to see him in person. That's why I want him to keep racing, because I want to see him in person.
Well, that's why when I compiled my list, I went back to, believe it or not, Spectacular Bid's sire, Bold Bidder, son of Bold Ruler, out of an Alabama winner. He was really the first champion that I witnessed in person. Just a teenage kid going to the races with my dad to see the Stroob Stakes in 1966. And, I'd followed all these horses very thoroughly, and they were good 4-year-olds. They were the best in California, a couple from the East as well, Royal Gunner. And Bold Bidder, who came to town with a pretty good reputation. He'd won races in Jamaica, New York, the Hawthorne. So he was building into a star. And he took the 1.25 mile Stroob Stakes by the throat and just shook it to death. I mean, he won in track record time, a track record that had stood for, since the late 40s, I think. I'm not sure. And at 1.25 miles. And those are all the Stroobs in the Santa Anita Handicap. So there's a lot of good horses running 1.25 miles. And won by, I think, 6 lengths. And of course, I didn't know it at the time, but the more I look back on that, that was the first great performance I'd seen in person.
I've always looked at performances and said, the question I always ask is, who did he beat and by how much? And when you look at this field, it was only 6 horses, but you had the Dubai World Cup winner, and you had 2 other Group 1 winners, grade 1 Group 1 winners, and another graded, I think they were all graded stakes winners, if I'm not mistaken. And this was not a bad field. And Country Grammar finished 20 lengths back, 19.25 lengths back, but his final time was right on par or even better than what he ran in Dubai, I think. So I think he ran his race. It just got stomped.
Well, Bull Bidder beat Terry Secret. All Terry Secret did was at 3, won the Hollywood Derby at 1.25 miles, beat older horses at 1 5/8 miles in the Sunset, and beat older horses at 1 1/8 miles in the Del Mar Handicap. So that's the kind of horse that Bull Bidder was beating. That that is that through line of when they separate themselves from a field like that, that adds to the luster.
I was talking to Irad Ortiz closing day at Saratoga, and I said, "So did you watch that monster in California?" And he's like, "Yeah." I said, "Well, what do you think about the Breeders' Cup?" He rides Life is Good. He goes, "I have a monster myself." He goes, "I can't wait to run against him." So, and Todd Fletcher would not shower Flightline with bows and whistles, and he said, "Yeah, it was a good race. And I'm not there to watch him train. I just saw what I saw," and I think he's chomping at the bit to try to get his shot at him too. It would be great if Life is Good and them and Flightline hook up and it becomes a race for the ages. But with the way Flightline's running, I don't think it'll be a race for the ages. I think it's just going to be a race to see how much Flightline's going to win by.
I got a kick out of Bill Mott's comment to the Niagara press office after Olympia had won the Jockey Club Gold Cup and Flightline had won. He said, they usually run these races with more than one horse. That wasn't the case with Spectacular Bid in the Woodward, I believe, which was a walkover. And he said, so we would be interested in running. And I love that attitude because, the Breeders' Cup Classic is the race where all the good ones are supposed to show up. And I hope they do.
So do I.
Well, this year it's going to be all the good ones plus Flightline.
Parting thoughts here before we sign off, Tim?
You know, Flightline is become the LeBron James, Tom Brady, what baseball, the Aaron Judge of horse racing, all rolled into one. And I just hope he stays together and becomes even more of a superstar, because I think a lot of people really romanticize about having a horse like this and being able to watch it.
Yeah, I think you've got a race running behind you at Kentucky Downs.
The opener at Kentucky Downs is in the books.
It's pretty
Jay, your
quiet
closing
out there. Well, to the point of our conversation of what separates horses from just very good to very great to almost otherworldly, I think we saw that, and I don't think. I mean, we're almost a week later now, and we've had time to calm down a little bit, time to digest, how his speed figures stack up to other greats in the past, and we weren't saying the same things about those horses necessarily that we are about Flightline. But I think this is a horse who requires that kind of almost a confluence of the head and the heart to appreciate, because from all angles he is doing things that only the greatest racehorses can do. And he's doing them in a context that doesn't really satisfy traditional values. So we might have to park those by the side of the road, and just every time he runs, it's like, the Mona Lisa came to town, or, it's the first time we get to see the Grand Canyon or something like that. It's going to be very special. If it's only once more, I can live with that, because we got to see him at least those times.
Well, I appreciate both of you taking the time to talk. It's really been fun, reminiscing about the old days, and also this horse is right up there with the best as far as I'm concerned. And I can't wait to see him in the Classic, and I hope all the good ones show up, and we'll see what happens then. That's the Friday show for this week, presented by Woodbine. Tim Wilkin, thank you very much. Jay Hovdey, thank you very much. And thanks to all of you for tuning in. We'll see you next week.